The story begins in a dim and cluttered apartment. There are trash bags scattered all over the place, making it difficult to move around. The windows are so dirty that barely any light comes through. Old calendar pages are taped to the wall to help keep track of the date. A young boy named Itsuro Krosu lives in this apartment. Itsuro has been struggling with severe social withdrawal and depression after failing to gain admission to a university. He has cut off every single person in his life, including his parents. Itsuro believes his life is meaningless. Nothing new ever happens, and everything has lost its charm. One day, as he lies on his bed reciting the digits of pi, he decides to commit the unthinkable. He wraps a belt around his neck and ties the other end to a shelf. Just as he lets his body hang, he starts to struggle. The shelf breaks off the wall and falls on top of him. Gasping for air, Itsuro notices a beam of light entering the room. The broken shelf has left a small hole in the wall, revealing the apartment next door. Peering through the gap, he sees his beautiful neighbor, Ryo Michi. Itsuro is mesmerized by her beauty as he continues watching her enjoy her meal. On Ryo's side, the hole is barely noticeable as it opens behind a bookshelf. From that day on, Itsuro begins observing Ryo's life. He's still stunned by the fact that someone as lovely as Ryo lives right next to him. The next day, Ryo heads out carrying a bag and a few books. Seeing this, Itsuro assumes she's a student. He finishes the last of his food, some cheap snacks. Bored and curious, he spent the entire day watching Ryo. Noticing that she only ever leaves the house for classes and never seems to meet anyone, he concludes she doesn't have any friends. One day, while Itsuro is snooping, Ryo suddenly disappears. In a desperate attempt to find out where she went, he steps out of his apartment for the first time in a while. He walks over to her door and tries to listen for any sounds. Just as he's peeking through the mail slot, he notices a girl downstairs watching his creepy behavior. The girl, Haruko Kawasaki, has come to check on her brother, who lives in the apartment below. At that moment, Itsuro smells something delicious. It turns out Haruko brought food for her brother, but after getting no response, she leaves the bag hanging on the doorknob and walks away. Itsuro seizes the chance to take the bag, hoping for a decent meal. He opens it and takes a few bites before being interrupted once again. This time, it's Ryo herself, staring at him in shock, witnessing his unsettling behavior. After a brief introduction, Ryo realizes that Itsuro is her neighbor. She then invites him to lunch at her apartment. Itsuro quickly agrees. While Ryo prepares the food, Itsuro looks around her apartment and finds the hole in the wall. Just then, Ryo walks in and notices the elastic waistband of Itsuro's worn-out pants. After that, they enjoy a tasty home-cooked dinner together. Itsuro heads back to his place in a surprisingly good mood after Ryo tells him they should hang out again sometime. Ever since that day, Itsuro begins visiting Ryo more regularly for dinner, despite the fact that he's still secretly watching her. One day, he finally gathers the courage to ask her why she wants to spend time with someone like him. Itsuro admits that he has dropped out of prep school and doesn't have a job either. Ryo comments on how quickly they've formed a connection in such a short time and how much that means to her. Her words deeply move Itsuro. After quickly finishing his food, he rushes back to his apartment. He decides to stop watching Ryo and gently covers the hole in the wall with a piece of paper and a thumbtack. That night, a thunderstorm hits. Itsuro sits alone in his room, struggling to come up with a reason to remove the paper. Just then, he hears Ryo's door open in the middle of the night. He quickly pulls the paper off the wall, only to see Ryo enter her room. She's wearing a simple coat and holding a knife. Moments later, a suited man follows her in. Just as he embraces Ryo from behind, she suddenly attacks him with swift martial arts moves. She slits the man's throat and kills him violently. With blood splattered across her coat, she smiles slyly. Seeing this, Itsuro is horrified. In his panic, he accidentally knocks against the wall. At that moment, a book falls from Ryo's shelf and blocks his view. Soon after, a mysterious van shows up, and a group of men carry boxes into Ryo's apartment. Back in his room, Itsuro is confused, trying to process the strange events he just witnessed. Minutes later, he hears a knock on his door. It's Rio, dressed nicely and looking completely normal. She's holding a pot of food and, with a big smile on her face, asks if they can eat in his apartment from time to time. After clearing some space and lighting a few candles, they set the table. Rio is calm and composed as she eats. Meanwhile, Itsuro is still unable to wrap his head around the fact that Rio just killed someone. While eating, Rio brings up Itsuro's earlier question and tells him not to worry. She talks about how, after being alone for a long time, she began to question her sanity. But being around him makes her feel normal. Once Rio leaves, Itsuro uses a chopstick to knock over the book that had blocked his view. He looks into her room and sees Rio enjoying some tea. Everything appears normal, so he convinces himself that he must have imagined the whole thing, that none of it really happened. Moments later, he hears a voice say goodbye to Rio. Itsuro rushes to his door to see who it is. Just then, a mysterious woman named Reina and someone called Magi pass by his door. When she looks back to see Itsuro standing in his entryway, he quickly closes the door. She calls out his name and pauses for a brief moment before leaving. The next morning, Rio runs into him on her way to college. She offers to let him use her washing machine to clean his clothes, then invites him to eat at her place again. While washing his clothes, Itsuro recalls the murder scene. However, his admiration for Rio blinds him once again. Looking forward to eating together, Itsuro rushes home, freshens up, and sets the table. Later that night, while he's waiting for Rio to arrive, he hears the door opening at her apartment. He looks through the peephole, only to see Rio killing another man, one with a B tattoo on his arm. Just like before, she's wearing the raincoat. Using her martial arts skills, she slashes the man's throat before smiling cunningly. Itsuro quickly realizes this isn't a hallucination. Rio is truly luring men into her home and killing them. Stunned, he screams, which draws Rio's attention to the peephole. She thrusts her box cutter through it before staring directly at him. Terrified, he runs out of his apartment, and Rio chases after him through the streets with the cutter in hand. Using the emergency exit, he escapes to the rooftop of a building. However, Rio quickly catches up and corners him there. She asks if he saw her kill the man. Itsuro admits that he's been watching her for some time, and that he already knew she was a killer. She finds it curious that, even though he knew, he still came over to eat with her. Then Rio walks up to kill him. But Itsuro explains that he once tried to end his life by hanging himself. That's when he found the hole in the wall and saw her. He immediately fell in love and realized that being with her felt better than dying. After confirming that Rio is indeed a killer, he becomes sorrowful again. Dropping to his knees, he closes his eyes, ready for her to kill him. Shocked by Itsuro's confession, Rio approaches him with the cutter. She grabs him and places the blade against his neck. Fascinated by how calm he is, she decides not to kill him. When asked how he feels in that moment, Itsuro says he wants to date her. Surprisingly, Rio agrees, then proceeds to lick the blood off a bruise on Itsuro's lip, which he got while running from her. Just as he's about to kiss her, she stops him and asks him to continue spying on her. The next day, Haruko finally reunites with her brother, Kawasaki, who is happily playing with a cat. She urges him to stay in contact, as their parents have been worried about him. After giving him the food she brought, she notices something on the porch and greets him. Later, Itsuro is washing his clothes using Rio's washing machine. After that, the two have lunch at his place. Rio is surprised at how clearly one can see through the hole in the wall. Itsuro apologizes and promises to fix it, but Rio stops him. Itsuro still can't believe he's dating such a beautiful girl like Rio. After that, Itsuro tells Rio that he likes almost everything about her, which makes her feel a little embarrassed. He promises to get a job so he can become a better boyfriend. Itsuro ends up working at a convenience store, but every time he uses a box cutter, he can't help but think about how Rio brutally murdered those men. Despite that, he continues dating her. Later that night, he comes home and sees Rio waiting for him by the door. Itsuro feels it would be better if they stayed in the same room. However, Rio believes they shouldn't sleep in the same room at night now that they're dating. The next day, Rio asks him to accompany her to the university. It turns out she just wanted him to carry her microwave because the one in her lab had stopped working. After being away from school life for so long, Itsuro feels self-conscious around so many people. Just being at the university triggers his insecurities. However, he gets over it when Rio proudly introduces him as her boyfriend in front of her classmates and friends. During lunch, he gazes at Rio affectionately, thinking he might be the first guy she's ever dated. He then tells her about his plan to retake the entrance exam next year. He wants to become a better person for her, someone worthy of being with her, because he can't imagine a future without her. Rio just laughs, amused by the idea that he thinks he needs to be good enough for someone like her. She reminds him that she's a killer with no intention of stopping. She tells him she's been doing it for a while now. Later, after class, Rio asks him if he's hungry. On their way to the restaurant, everything seems normal. Then suddenly, Rio stops, puts on her clear raincoat, grabs a woman right there on the street, and kills her, spraying blood all over the wall. Shocked, Itsuro turns his face away when Rio asks if he's okay. From then on, Rio openly starts murdering people in front of him. During their dates, she would randomly grab someone and slit their throat right in the middle of the street. At this point, Itsuro starts to wonder if she chooses her victims randomly, but she admits she follows her own twisted code of ethics and even keeps a list of local criminals. Seeing that Rio mostly kills offenders, Itsuro asks if he can see her as some sort of vigilante. The two laugh about it as Rio continues her killings, but Itsuro quickly realizes it just doesn't feel right watching her take lives like that. At work, he's surprised to find that none of her victims are ever reported or mentioned in the news. That evening, on his way back from work, Itsuro runs into his neighbor Kawasaki. They talk about how cute cats are. After that, Itsuro heads over to meet Rio at the park. Every time he looks at her, he can't help but think about how she keeps killing people. The only thing keeping him in the relationship is Rio's charm. At the park, they share a chocolate and coffee ice cream that he brought with him. Rio is touched that Itsuro bought something fair for the two of them. Itsuro's life gradually begins to improve. Now that he's working and has a steady salary, he decides to purchase a new phone for himself. One day, while working at the cash register, Haruko stops by to buy a few snacks. Itsuro gives them to her for free, feeling guilty about the pack of food he stole from her earlier. Later that night, Itsuro heads home to discover that his apartment's power has been restored. Excited, he calls out to Rio, but gets no response. He looks through the peephole only to find a note asking him to stay in his room at 10 p.m. After taking a shower, Itsuro gets ready for bed. When he peeks through the peephole again, he sees Kawasaki lying on Rio's bed, tied up. It turns out Rio has kidnapped Kawasaki. Confused and scared, Itsuro begs her not to kill him. However, she tells him to stay calm so they don't get caught. He reminds her that killing is a crime and that Kawasaki doesn't deserve to die. But Rio refuses to listen and goes ahead with the murder. Itsuro is devastated as he watches her kill their neighbor. Right after that, Ray and her team show up in a black van and clean up the entire crime scene, which explains why no one has found out about any of the murders. Later, Itsuro goes to Rio's apartment demanding answers. Ray stops him first and asks if he's brave or just stupid. She then explains that Rio is a skilled killer who does the job quickly and cleanly. Her team is just there to collect the body and clean up the scene. She instructs them to cut up Kawasaki's body, as it's already in bad shape. Ray then asks Itsuro if he finds it strange that Rio hasn't been caught despite all the people she's killed. She goes on to explain that there are people out there who need fresh bodies. When he asks where Rio is, Ray reveals that she's probably out eating. She gets hungry after killing. Just as she's about to leave, Itsuro stops her and asks why Rio would kill an innocent person like Kawasaki. In response, Ray takes him to Kawasaki's apartment and shows him that Kawasaki had actually been torturing the stray cats he pretended to care for. Ray doesn't understand Itsuro's emotional reaction. She tells him he's probably going to end up dead too, since it's impossible for Rio to connect with people in any other way. The next morning, Ryo knocks on Itsuro's door, but he doesn't answer. In a desperate attempt to see him, she jumps from her balcony to his and enters. Itsuro tells her he's not feeling well and stays in bed. She lies down next to him to help keep him warm. He continues to tell Ryo that killing people is wrong. In response, Ryo asks if he's upset because she killed someone he knew. Itsuro tells her he has no sympathy for Kawasaki, but insists that there should be rules. Ryo then asks if he believes some people can be killed while others can't. She presses him further, questioning who really has the right to decide who lives and who dies. She points out that every country has different laws and that they constantly change, so true justice doesn't really exist. Itsuro uses this moment to tell her that he doesn't want to see her killing anyone anymore. This upsets Ryo, and she quickly leaves his apartment. Despite everything, Itsuro admits to himself that he still likes her, no matter what. The next morning, Itsuro runs into Haruko. She asks if he's heard from her brother recently. Itsuro tries to make an excuse to leave, but all she wants to know is whether he's been attending college, since her brother hasn't called or visited in some time. That's when Ryo shows up, clearly jealous. She asks Itsuro who he's talking to. Haruko politely introduces herself and explains that her older brother lives in the building. Hearing this, Ryo invites her to wait for him at her apartment. But Itsuro panics and quickly sends Haruko away, promising to contact her if he hears anything about Kawasaki. Later, while having dinner with Ryo, Itsuro can't help but worry that Haruko might come back and discover the truth. But seeing how calm Ryo is about the situation alarms him even more. He asks Ryo if she plans to kill Haruko too. That's when Ryo reminds him of her rules. If she starts killing indiscriminately, it puts her identity at risk. She assures Itsuro that she won't harm Haruko. A few days later, Haruko texts him, asking if they can meet to talk about her brother. While Itsuro is still deciding whether to say yes, someone suddenly grabs him and pulls him into a black van. It turns out to be Reina. She warns him to become someone worthy of Ryo, or she'll kill him. Itsuro mentions that Kawasaki's sister is still looking for him. Reina tells him not to worry. Before leaving, she says that while he may be useless as a person, he could make a great corpse. Later that day, Itsuro meets Haruko for tea. She's desperate to know what happened to her brother. When he asks if she filed a missing person report, Haruko says she actually withdrew it, thinking Kawasaki may have gone on a trip. She asks Itsuro to accompany her to see the landlord, as she's too scared to go alone. He agrees, so she doesn't get suspicious. Together, they ask the landlord to open Kawasaki's apartment. To Itsuro's surprise, Reina's group has already cleaned everything up. They even planted a fake plane ticket on the table to make it seem like Kawasaki went on a trip. Afterward, Haruko takes a walk with him. She still seems worried about her brother, but Itsuro reassures her that he's probably fine. She apologizes for bothering him and asks him to let her know if he hears anything. However, she then says she won't follow up again. She doesn't want to upset Ryo, his girlfriend. Itsuro admits that even though he's dating Ryo, he doesn't really know her that well, and that she could be a bit twisted. That night, he sees a man with the same tattoo as one of Ryo's earlier victims. The man puts his arm around Ryo, and to Itsuro's shock, she doesn't push him away. Later at dinner, Itsuro brings it up and asks Ryo who the man was. Instead of answering, she says that as a college student, she can meet whoever she wants. Growing suspicious, Itsuro asks if she's planning to break up with him. Just then, Ryo accuses him of spending time with Haruko. Itsuro denies it and insists that he only talked to Haruko to protect her. Ryo acknowledges that Reina helped cover her tracks, but calls Itsuro out for drooling over Haruko. Sensing Ryo is up to something, Itsuro confronts her. This makes her angry, and she leaves the room, before demanding that he cut off all contact with Haruko. Later, he hugs Ryo, but when he leans in to kiss her, she threatens to kill him. That night, Ryo meets with the B team and tells them she's rejecting their offer to be their personal assassin. Furious, the leader reminds her that they know she killed one of their members. He declares that she's now part of their cleanup crew, and if she refuses to work or goes to the police, they'll kill Itsuro. The next day, Ryo waits outside Itsuro's workplace to walk him home. When they arrive, they find Haruko waiting outside and invite her in. As the three have tea, Haruko shows them a postcard supposedly from Kawasaki, faked by Reina to hide the truth. Haruko is anxious about what to tell her parents and worried that Kawasaki hasn't answered her calls. Suddenly, Haruko passes out. It turns out Ryo drugged her tea and plans to kill her. Itsuro tries to stop her by reminding her that she doesn't kill just to silence people. But Ryo claims she makes her own rules now. Itsuro worries that if she keeps killing like this, the police will eventually catch her. She threatens to kill him by slitting his artery and letting him bleed out. But because of her determination, she eventually backs off. When Haruko wakes up, she confesses her feelings to Itsuro. Their moment is cut short when Ri's group arrives, expecting to find Haruko dead. As Haruko leaves, Reina warns Itsuro not to get Ryo involved again. She mentions how this is the first time Ryo hasn't killed someone she was supposed to, claiming Ryo will never truly connect with him. Rei threatens Itsuro to leave her alone. Later, Ryo meets with Rei and apologizes for not going through with killing Haruko. She shares an ice cream with her, but Rei reminds her that she decides who lives and who dies. If she delays, the bodies won't be clean, and Reina won't be able to use them. Meanwhile, Itsuro meets Haruko at a cafe. She tells him her feelings for him are real. However, he gently turns her down, claiming he was only trying to help with her brother. Haruko seems confused, since Itsuro once said that Ryo wasn't right for him. She thinks she's just being dragged around, and that won't ever change. Before leaving, she says she'll be at the cafe again tomorrow if he wants to give her a chance. On his way home, a black van pulls up. Itsuro assumes it's Reina again, but it turns out to be the B gang. They kidnap him and take him to their bar, asking him to convince Ryo to kill for them. Itsuro refuses, so they threaten to go to the police before slashing his cheek and letting him go. When he gets home, Ryo sees the cut on his face and tries to go after the gang, but he stops her. He tells her he'd rather be hurt himself than see her kill again. Ryo reminds him that killing is part of who she is, and she doesn't feel like herself without it. But Itsuro points out that she didn't kill Haruko, which means she can change if she wants to. He confesses how much he likes her, but Ryo feels he doesn't truly understand or accept her. She doesn't believe they have a future and leaves in tears, asking him to cover the peephole. Later that night, while Itsuro is working at the convenience store, Rei stops by to buy an ice cream. She tells him Ryo has asked for a major cleanup soon. Itsuro still struggles with accepting all the killing, but Reina claims what they have is a rare bond no one can break. That night, Itsuro hears strange sounds coming from Ryo's apartment. He rushes to the peephole only to see Ryo killing someone, except this time, she's not smiling. Instead, she's crying. This makes him believe the B gang must have forced her to do it. In that moment, Itsuro has a wild realization. Ryo might not change or need him, but he can't deny that he needs her. After calling Haruko to cancel their meeting, he goes straight to the B gang's bar. Itsuro begs them to stop forcing Ryo to kill, but when they refuse, he pulls out a knife and tries to fight them. Of course, he's no match for the whole gang, and they quickly overpower him. They throw him to the ground and start beating him. The gang leader grabs him and tries to slit his throat the way Ryo does. Just then, the power goes out and sleeping gas fills the room. As everyone passes out, Ryo appears in her signature raincoat. She's initially shocked to see Itsuro there, but when she notices he's hurt, she gets furious. Grabbing his knife, along with her own, she takes down all the gang members. Ryo kills the gang leader before helping the injured Itsuro onto the couch. She tells him that she didn't enjoy the kill this time, but that doesn't mean she'll stop. After confessing their love for each other, they kiss. Then, Ryo stabs him. She smiles, saying she always wanted to kill someone she loved, but quickly realizes it doesn't feel the way she expected. Itsuro is strangely happy to hear that. They express their love once more before collapsing together. A few days later, Rei sees Ryo carrying a bag, while Itsuro follows her on crutches. They agree to have their old apartment cleaned out and Ray jokes that he shouldn't spy on her just because they're moving in together. As they walk off, Ryo tells Itsuro she won't kill anyone else, but one day, she will kill him. He smiles and says, "That's fine, because my fate belongs only to you." Then she pauses, realizing they never even learned each other's first names. They laugh as they finally introduce themselves properly. The movie ends with them shaking hands, as if it's the start of something new.